We have a major winter storm underway in the west. Winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings up all over the place in the western part of the United States and extending into the Great Lakes. And we've got also snow and ice issues for the interior of the Northeast, well into the interior of the Northeast. We'll go over all the watches and warnings that are up. Also, we have record highs that are going to be set across the South and into the mid Atlantic states over the next couple of days. And yes, Virginia, there was a tornado in New Jersey today. All of that and more on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They are making the transition over from winter to spring, so they've got mulch, topsoil, sand, and just in case something were to happen between now and then, they still have lots of salt. That's a shocking surprise. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And Joe, I think the Storm Prediction Center got caught today. I know they had in the area where they had the aforementioned tornado a marginal risk of that. And you know what? Maybe they didn't get caught, but who calls for marginal risk of severe weather in New Jersey in mid-February?
I saw it this morning, and I sort of did a double take. And then I looked at what was going on. And I said, okay, well, I guess maybe there could be a thunderstorm or two. But I suppose it's just par for the course for this winter that there should have been a tornado in central New Jersey today that was, I believe, confirmed. And I'm hearing reports of, I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm hearing reports of there was some damage in Mercer County, I believe. Still trying to get all the details of all of this. But I mean, it just goes to show how perverse this entire winter is. When you can't get a flake of snow, okay, which by the way, some places did last night and early this morning. But you can't buy a snowflake. You can't buy a coating of snow just about anywhere in the coastal plain in the I-95 corridor. But of course, you should have that. So I think the next thing we need to put on the agenda is on the list of things that shouldn't happen but will, is that we'll probably have tropical storm warnings and a hurricane watch at some point during the month of March, the way things are going.
David Schwartz on the chat board says, I've not seen any confirmation of a tornado yet. However, on CBS 2 this evening, Lonnie Quinn had made the mention that there was a video of a water spout and also a person who claimed she was interviewed and some of her trees were literally torn up from the roots, saying that she saw, quote, a funnel. I saw the funnel. So that's, I know the National Weather Service will be making their, probably it will be Mount Holly that will be sending a group over to investigate the damage and to confirm whether or not it might have been a tornado. But from the fact that a water spout was photographed, the fact that somebody said specifically, yes, I saw a funnel, that seems to me that there was a tornado in parts of central New Jersey. And yeah, all the channels, Joe, 2, 4, 7, leading off all of their hourly newscasts with views of the damage, not only from the ground but also from their various choppers looking down. And it looked like it was a real nasty, maybe a very small region affected, but still a very nasty storm system that occurred this afternoon around 3 to 3:30, according to most of the witnesses who were interviewed or most of the people who were out and about at the time when the storm was hitting. I see Mark DeChera mentioning that a tornado warning issued for New Jersey earlier this afternoon from 3:40 to 4:15 for Windsor, New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. It was right Joe Cioffi, a person trapped in a car with wires down. So, yeah, a real nasty mid-afternoon if you were in Central. And you know what? But Renata and I were in that area. We're in that vicinity last Thursday and Friday. Thank goodness that it didn't happen today. I say that very true.
Well, I
All
just
we had on Friday was heavy rain, but this was a totally different category altogether.
well, I'm trying to load this from Twitter. This is from Ryan at Ryan Kelly Weather. Should see it on the screen now. Hopefully, I won't lose it. Like up there it is. I lost it again. Okay, let's see if I can finally get this shot to come up. Let's try one more time. It keeps coming up and then going away. Yeah, I have to. I got to message Elon. There's a problem here. Picture comes up, but then it doesn't stay. But you can see the fore shot here of the wreck of the vehicle. And let me try. I'll try once more. Well, you can see the wreck of the vehicle. It's the wreck of the. My God, look at that! Look at all those trees down. Here's another shot, Joe, of a tree being. Look at that! It was completely snapped.
Yeah,
I mean, this completely snapped off like that. Wow, that's impressive. Here's another.
yeah.
Look at this wider shot here. And of course, the folks in the southern half of New Jersey know tornado activity all too well in the last year. They've seen numerous tornadoes in the last 15 or so months. Here's one last shot. I guess the roots are all out, and that's very, very impressive. And thanks to Ryan Kelly at Ryan Kelly Weather from this was in Lawrence Square Village in Lawrence Township, New Jersey.
Wow.
So I think, well, looking at that damage, it's hard to say that it's straight line, but I'm not there, so I can't make that judgment for sure. So we'll let the folks at the Weather Service will definitely figure that one out. Uh, the other thing I did save radar, and this is the OKX radar out of Upton, just as the tornado warning went up, and you could see that red box that's the inside the severe thunderstorm warning, and there was also severe thunderstorm and special marine warnings up for the New Jersey shore. Whenever we see a marginal risk for severe weather, in my mind, that's an isolated severe thunderstorm possibility, and that's kind of how it played out. There were a couple of warnings here and there, but they were spread out. One was up near Binghamton, and then you had this
Well, look, I mean,
as
look
it
at that
moved.
box, Joe. I mean, I'm not talking about the one that's adjacent to the Jersey Shore and going out to sea. I mean, that one small rhomboid, if you will, within the lower end of a area of green, a radar showing showery weather. I mean, that's pretty isolated compared to the entire state of New Jersey. Uh, but who knew? Who would have forecasted something like that? And where that red box was, that little red area. I mean, my goodness, the damage uh, turned out to be quite memorable.
And that, by the way, our Timothy Veltman sent me that tweet. So thank you to Timothy Veltman as well. I also have David Fuller. Now let's see how difficult it's going to be to get this to come up. Of course, I have no problems bringing these things up beforehand, but I can only open so many windows. Now, of course, all right, it's there. There's his lightning strike device, lightning detector. Waiting for the rest of the message to load because he did send me some radar shots that I thought were pretty interesting. So let's see if we can get these to work. All right. We're opening it up, folks. So there you go. Oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. This is the cell that became the tornado. And I mean, look, there clearly is a hook in there. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
Very impressive. As it moved along to the east. Wow.
I'll bet you when this is all over, said and done, and when the final investigations are completed or whatever, I'll bet you this is going to rank as like an F2. You know. in
Yeah,
terms of
an
yeah.
EF2. I wouldn't be surprised. Keith James the second hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Keith. He says, "I'm at my new quote part-time job, part-time unquote, not job. I'm sorry. I'm at my new quote part-time residence in Schenectady, calling for ice in my region." 8 to 12 in the North Country and rain to the south, question mark. Shouldn't this be happening around New York City? Winter moved about 150 miles to the north. Well, that has been the story pretty much all winter long. I mean, if you're north of I-90 in upstate New York, I think you could do pretty well with this snow wise. Take a look at this watches and warnings map, Joe. It is insane. How many states have winter storm warnings up? Every state in the west, over toward New Mexico. Then you could sort of leave out Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. And then you count Nebraska, South and North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, all under winter storm warnings. And in the orange, we have expanded blizzard warnings now. There are a couple of counties in northern Wisconsin near the shores of Lake Superior where they put it up. Um, and in southwestern Minnesota, all under blizzard warnings. I'm pretty sure that Minneapolis is in one of those boxes. Eastern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota. We still have a bunch of counties in Wyoming in the middle part of the state up and down where we've got blizzard warnings there. And, on either side of that, you've got winter storm warnings. Winter weather advisories, I believe, up in Denver. There's a few counties in northeastern Colorado under advisories for now, but the rest of the western part of the state is under winter storm warnings, as is the western part of New Mexico, the northern half, most of the northern half of Arizona, most of Utah, a few counties in Nevada, a few counties up in northern Idaho, the Cascades in Washington and Oregon, the coastal range in Oregon down into northern California to not too far from San Francisco. And then we've got winter storm warnings up for the southern mountains to the northwest of Los Angeles under winter storm warnings. And I believe they have still watches up a little further south down near San Diego. Also, I don't want to leave out the purple that you see in that small area in southeastern Iowa. I'm sorry, in northeastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and southern Michigan. Those are ice storm warnings for what could be a quarter to a half an inch of ice accretion. Winter weather advisories in central and northeastern Pennsylvania, southern New York, south of I-90, north of I-90, and a few counties north of I-90. It's winter storm watches for the rest of northeastern New York, for Vermont, for New Hampshire, except the southern counties, and into Maine. And we'll probably see more in the way of winter storm watches and warnings up for upstate New York and northern New England before this is all said and done. This is we've been talking about this since late last week when we saw it evolve on the guidance, and I mean this is really it's impressed me. This is one of the more impressive setups that I've seen in quite a long time.
Out of the 50 states, this is not just including the 48 contiguous states because there's an inset for Hawaii and also Alaska on the watch
Yes.
warning map or whatever. Out of the 50 states, there are only, to my, as best I can see here, there are only 7 states that do not have any kind of watch, warning, or advisory. And Joe, you get the cigar tonight because you live in one of those 7 states. There's nothing posted in the state of Georgia. Nothing in Georgia, nothing in Alabama, Florida, the Carolina, well, South Carolina. Because if you go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, I think they have like a wind advisory posted. Virginia, maybe. I mean, this is ridiculous. Almost every state has something going on tonight.
We should also mention the wind advisories that are up for the lower Mississippi Valley down to the Gulf Coast and extending up into western Tennessee and also in the into southern Indiana, west central and western Kentucky, southern Illinois, and southeast Missouri. A lot of wind advisories and high wind warnings out in the west, and those extend into West Texas. And let's look at the latest snow forecast from the digital forecast here, and you could just see again. Look at the yellow is 30 inches plus, and it's hard to. I'm gonna see if I can zoom. This is just to the north. Actually, it's to the northwest of Los Angeles. So the warnings are up to the northeast of Los Angeles. I said northwest before, but they're actually up northeast where they've got a couple of 25 to 30 prints. But also to the northwest of Los Angeles. I don't know what mountain range that is on the west side of I-5, but they're going for 30 inches plus there. And down at San Diego in the ranges that are to the east of them, there's a 22 print showing up. A couple of 22, looks like that 22 there in Arizona, Joe. I think that's Flagstaff,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
is not a shocker. I mean, snowing in Flagstaff, it's like saying it's winter in Maine. It
Well, I
snows in
mean, like
Flagstaff.
people who don't like the Arizona heat live in the area in the northern country of Arizona. That's not where they hit, 100 or 110 degrees on a daily basis like Tucson and Phoenix. That's the good part about living up there. The bad part is every once in a while you get days like or situations like this where it just comes down. The snow just comes down, tremendous amounts of snow. And if you don't mind, 20, 22 inches up in Flagstaff, that's, good. It's
Yeah.
Adam Lowe asked the question, do you think someone in the mid Atlantic now, I'm not sure. Is he talking about last Thursday or is he talking about the upcoming Thursday of this week? He said, did somebody hit 90 Fahrenheit on Thursday? Thursday is set to be the hottest February day on record for most of the east south of the warm front.
As he means this coming Thursday. We're going to
This
check.
coming
I'm
Thursday.
going to bring up the temperature map in a moment. But
Not to say, of course, that last Thursday was pretty damn warm too.
yeah. Howard A. hitting super chat. Thank you, Howard, saying he appreciates the detailed coverage on the wacky February weather. Yeah, it's wacky. And here we go. The max area that shows up, foot plus into South Dakota, northern Nebraska, and probably up to 2.5 to 2 feet when you move into Minnesota and across into Wisconsin. If I was a snow lover in Chicago right now, I'd be in tears because you're just you're just out of it. You're just out of the freezing precipitation, let alone the snow. Milwaukee's got a 3 print, Madison has a 4, and then you jump north of there and you head up toward Green Bay where they got an 18, and all the northern cities here, anywhere between 15 and 20. Also in the upper peninsula of Michigan, we're looking at a foot plus in the. I'm sorry, in the foot plus in the upper peninsula. Also on the upper part of the lower peninsula, a foot plus. Detroit is on the edge, but again, that whole southern area where you've got a coating to an inch or two is also the area that's under ice storm warnings, and that's probably far worse in my opinion than anything else. I mean, you'd rather get the foot of snow than to get even a quarter to a half an inch of ice accretion. And Barry Goldberg hitting super chat. Thank you, Barry. Most appreciated. He says, when people ask why our winter has been virtually snow free, I tell them it's due to an unusually high moon angle. Yes, we're in that season now where the Sun Angle Society members come out in full force every time there's going to be a threat for any snow anywhere in the if there is in our neck of the woods, if there ever is. And then of course we have what eventually winds up in New York State and New England, again mostly north of I-90, a little bit further north than that when you get into Massachusetts, where we're seeing some 12-inch amounts, particularly in northeastern New York, central and northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and on up into the great state of Maine. Now, the impacts, again, there's especially when you get into this latter part of February and you get into March and you get storms like this, you're going to see big warm-ups on the south side. And that's indeed going to be the case. I'm going to bring up Thursday's forecast high temperature map here. And this is a time of year where you have to be careful with guidance. Not so much in the South Atlantic states, but if you're in the Mid Atlantic states and points northward, this is where you could easily get outdone by the temperatures if there's enough sun. And they've got an 80 for Washington. These are the actual Weather Service office forecasts. So they may have already. I haven't looked. I didn't look to see what the guidance was giving, but this is for Thursday, and you can see it's low 80s in Virginia, middle 80s in North and South Carolina. They've got. I'm the 74 here, Joe. And they've got a 79 in Atlanta. Something tells me that that's too low, but we'll see. I wonder why they've got this sort of cool pool in the 70s here, but they've got mostly 80s just about everywhere else. And those 80s go all through the Gulf states and up into Arkansas, northern Mississippi. You've got low 80s even into Kentucky, for God's sake. And of course, in the Northeast, you talked about Thursday's the day with that warm front. Does it or doesn't it get through? And it looks like they've kind of edged it a little bit further to the north on some recent runs. So you've got 70 getting into Monmouth County, maybe southern Monmouth County here, the way they've got it forecast, and New York City still a high of about 52, 53. And then in southern New England, it's low. It's mostly 40s. You go up into Massachusetts and points north, you start to get highs just in the 30s. So it's going to be a battle zone. I'm going to go up, going backwards here. I'm just going to go look at tomorrow just to see what the numbers are for tomorrow. So tomorrow's kind of a setup day. So I'm going to be in the mid to upper 70s. You've got low 80s along the Carolina coast, 70s reaching into southern Virginia, 80s all across the south. I mean, this is what happens when you've got a setup like this, where it's a sort of east-west warm front and all sunshine. A lot of what's going to be going on down here is going to be bright sunshine.
And I'm looking here Thursday on my Facebook forecast for Thursday for the Hudson Valley. No, we're not calling for temperatures in the 50s or 60s or 70s. We've got temperatures in the mid to upper 40s, which is a little bit better than what we're calling for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm calling for temperatures within a few degrees of 40 degrees. But yeah, it's obvious that the warm air is not going to reach up to where we are. But what we are going to have as a result of the overrunning effect is going to be precipitation tomorrow in the afternoon and nighttime hours. And it looks like initially, Joe, at least here in the Hudson Valley, it's going to come down initially, I would think, as wet snow, and then change over by later tomorrow to sleet and ice, and that'll continue for a while into tomorrow night, and then we'll gradually change over to just plain old rain when we get to the late night hours tomorrow night. And I'm not, we don't have, for much of the Hudson Valley, there are no advisory or warning for this freezing precipitation. You have to go up to the north end of the Hudson Valley to get that type of situation. But still, there could be some slick spots, some slippery conditions, maybe on secondary roadways for a while late tomorrow and tomorrow evening as the precip transitions over from snow to sleet and then eventually, ultimately, over to just plain rain. It is not the, and this doesn't even rank as a cheap thrill for all the snow lovers have been waiting to see some kind of significant snowfall. No, will not rank as a cheap thrill. Just another typical day of disappointment, so to speak, with a little bit of ice, a little bit of snow, a little seltzer down your pants. I don't know.
I was waiting for that Mary Tyler Moore reference. A little song, a little dance,
And
a little
a little
seltzer
seltzer down your pants.
down your pants. Now, one of the reasons why we're not getting there's not a big area. You would think that with all of this going on, especially given the time of year, that we would have some rather large, severe weather issue for the next couple of days. But it's not. This is because of the fact that it's more east-west oriented, and so far to the north, there's not a lot of Gulf of moisture inflow coming in. And you can tell because if you look at the area of general thunderstorms for tomorrow, I'm sorry, this is for tonight. There's nothing going on across across the Gulf states and in the southeast. There's a small area of marginal risk in north central Texas into central Oklahoma. Now tomorrow, when we look at their outlook for tomorrow, it gets a little more robust. But even here, it's not crazy. You would think that you would have a much larger area. No thunderstorms across the south, the deep south, and in the southeast, but you've got a slight risk of severe weather from central Oklahoma, northeast, cutting right across Missouri into western Illinois, and then on day 3. They have no severe weather expected, although they do have general thunderstorms possible in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Go figure. And on the day 4 to 8, and also, by the way, I shouldn't leave this part out. Back to day 3, take a look in California. Uh, well, it was there a second ago. There you go. They got general thunderstorms covering much of the state of California, which, again, we're going to see all that. They're probably going to see thunder snow in some of those mountains out there. And I did notice on the day 4 through 8 outlook, Joe, that on day 6, I believe, day 6, there's already an elevated 15% potential for slight risk in Oklahoma and in Kansas. So a severe weather season, as we saw today in New Jersey, getting underway a bit early.
And on Facebook, I've also made note of the fact that today the midday sun is now as high up into the sky as it was on October 20th. The length of daylight is increasing by an average of 2.7 minutes per day. And the average high temperature at Westchester County Airport is now up to 43 degrees. 1 month from now, it will have risen to 49. And that almost sounds like the death knell right there for the snow lovers to see the average temperatures close to 50. And 2 weeks from this coming Sunday,
Oh, that dreaded day.
Daylight saving time will return.
Just a second. Can they ever make that go away? No, really. I want that. It means we got to wait forever for the damn. I shouldn't say that. The darn European.
I did, dear. I did. Not all of them. I've been handed a list of people who were so nice to contribute to Super Chats tonight, and the executive producer insists, even though I know that many of them have already been mentioned, I will mention them again. Keith James II, Barry Goldberg, Anthony Orr, Kendall Bailey, Leon Probitsky, and Howard A., all hitting Super Chats tonight, and we all thank you very, very much. I had to do that, Joe, or else I wouldn't get served dinner tomorrow night.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm trying because we've got a regular that watches the show and keeps trying to get to the chat board, Don, and I'm sending you a link for listening. I'll send you a link right now that should take you to where you can get access to the chat board. So let's hope this works. Try this. Okay. It's wonderful. All right. Where are we? I'm going to go to the surface map. Shall we?
Surely.
There's your warm sector today, with temperatures in the 50s and low 50s and 40s, and dew points that were not too far beneath them. But then you head down into Virginia and you see where the temperatures were in the 70s. So you had this really squirrely warm front that they have drawn. I guess, yeah. I mean, this is a warm sector, and that's where you got your, this was a 4 o'clock in the afternoon surface map, so this was right after we saw the tornado warning that went up. The cold front to the west that's moving through, another front that's back up in northern Michigan, because north of that you've got, it's in the 30s and 40s to the south of it, but it's in the teens and lower as you go north of that secondary front. And then, of course, here's the Arctic boundary. And if you remember from yesterday, it was just entering the Dakotas and Montana. It's now pushed its way down across Wyoming and southernmost South Dakota. Teens, single digits all on the north side of that front. You head over into Canada, it's all below zero. You go far enough north, you start to get into double digits below zero. There's this big cold high, a 1038-ish high, way up there, that is starting to push down, and that cold air is also going to be draining down into Oregon. Actually, some of it is already coming around that low that you see analyzed just east of Vancouver. You've got the northerly flow all the way down into Southern California. There's a cold front that runs from below in central Nevada that is heading southward, and that's setting up for the potential for the winter weather that we're seeing out in the west. And WPC. Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen a snowfall map that looks like this?
I'm looking. I'm thinking right now of an Oscar Mayer hot dog.
I mean, literally, you could start that the dark red of, except for a small break in Nevada, the dark red goes from Oregon down to and through the Sierra Nevadas to California. So let's just assume that it's connected there. It's basically 80 to 95%, so it's almost there. But you can connect that to what's in Utah and then go up to Wyoming and across South Dakota, northern Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, over to the other side to New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And you look at this, I know the snow lovers are looking at this and saying, why, oh, why cannot that boundary be, somewhere down in, say, from Virginia into toward Kansas or something, and you can just kind of shift everything southward? Well, you don't have right now. You will have it when it's when you're not going to have this happening. But if you had even a reasonable amount of some blocking going on in the North Atlantic, maybe you could have pulled this off, but you don't have it yet. It may be coming, but you don't have it. But there's your probability of at least two. And rather, it's pretty obvious who's getting what with the snowfall forecast map that we showed. Here's the probability of at least 8. And here too, focus on the blue. The darkest blue is 40%, so the next level up is 50%. And I mean, that goes almost unbroken from Utah into Wyoming, across northern Nebraska, and into South Dakota. Then you max out with almost 100, with 95 to 100% probability in southern Minnesota to Wisconsin, into the upper peninsula of Michigan, and you have also a 50% or higher chance of at least 8 in northern New York, the northern half of Vermont, the northern half of New Hampshire, and into western Maine. I mean, it's just this is really, you have to, when weather does this, you have to be in awe. You do. You may not be getting it here. I know the snow lovers are like, no, it's not happening here. I understand that, but when you see stuff like this, uh, it's humbling. Uh, that you can get a storm system that could produce this much havoc. Shall we try the probability of what? 12 or 18?
30.
Want me to do 30? All right, we'll do 30. There's going to be a few areas there in the Sierra Nevadas and even a few pockets in Southern California. There you go. A couple of little dots there of 5 to 10% for 30. We could do 18. And here we see, again, even on the northwestern California near the coastal ranges, showing some big amounts. And further east, we've got this pocket here in southern Minnesota of 30 to 40% probability of at least 18, and clearly you're not going to see that much, I think, in the northeast. On the long range, this is for Friday into Saturday. They're not done in California or in Nevada because they got another low that's going to be dropping southward just offshore, and with the cold air around, so they're going to get more snow from that. And then on Sunday, it gets out of there, and we move our way. Oh no, it doesn't get out of there. I'm sorry, that's the next day. That was Friday into Saturday on the first map. This is Saturday into Sunday, where you've got probabilities of 50 to 70% for at least a few additional inches. So you know that it's going to be even more than that. And in the east, we've got nothing. Sunday into Monday, we've got nothing. And Monday into Tuesday. Now, I don't know why they did this again. This is once again, Joe, from Philadelphia to New York City, Long Island. They've got a 10 to 30% chance. Hasn't happened yet. It has not happened yet. They've got 30 to 50 in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and on up into western Maine, also on the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and northern Wisconsin, and the UP of I'm sorry, the upper end of the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
I have a Tuesday for the Hudson Valley. I've got temperatures warming up into the 50s and periods of rain and a gusty wind as well. So I don't know. Maybe something will translate into colder temperature. In fact, Joe, Friday night. Let's put the emphasis on this. Friday night looks like I mean, not as cold as, let's say, Christmas or that night we had a couple of Fridays ago, but it looks like we're going to be in for a blustery and cold night on Friday night with temperatures in many locations dropping down through the teens and maybe into the single digits by Saturday morning as a wave, and once again, a short-lived wave of very cold weather arrives in our area. It's here on Friday, and it pretty well is gone before the end of the weekend.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna. I don't know. I'm just so gun shy with everything that the way this whole winter has been. I don't know what to believe anymore. But um, your forecast is good enough for me, Mr. Rayo. It's always
Uh,
good enough for me.
uh,
Um, we have 91 likes so far, and we haven't even gotten to the guidance. So why don't we ask those of you who like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, if you're lurking in the background, or maybe you're not lurking in the background, uh, hit the like button. And if you'd like to hit the like button or join the conversation on the chat board, subscribe to the Joe and Joe Weather Show with your Gmail account, and you can participate in the conversation, which occurs Monday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays we're off, unless we have something going on storm-wise, in which case we will jump in. And just like that, we're at 108. Thank you very much. Now, those of you who are forever hoping that this pattern will break down, um, make sure that before you go to bed tonight, to say a prayer, okay, to whoever you pray to. You know, we're being very inclusive here. Uh, or maybe you don't pray at all, whatever it is. Um, that the 18Z GFS is onto something, because um, Joe, this is probably the most, and I'm going to use it in quotes because I'm not in any way, shape, or form sold on this yet, but this has to be probably one of the more encouraging runs. The question is it just a one-run wonder, or I got to go back and look at the 12Z, but um, I'm rolling through the GFS ensemble first, and okay, so now we're at 5 days, so this is for next Sunday. See that big low that's near 50 and 50. You've got troughing in the west. There's a ridge along 80 that builds up to the Great Lakes. But take a look up toward Iceland and Greenland, and you'll notice that we've got a blocking high that builds. And you know what, Joe? It's actually inside the 7-day time frame. So that's a good sign. As we roll along, the block builds across Greenland into northeastern Canada. More importantly, I think, and this is key. This is a big difference from what the other runs have done, in that they've been building a block, but what they haven't been doing is showing some kind of vortex in southeastern Canada. This is the first run where we actually have, Joe, an upper low that forms near Newfoundland and southeastern Labrador, and you see it there, and it just kind of holds there. through the end of the forecast period. So you have kind of that 50-50 low look. This is actually a fairly encouraging run. Now, of course, the last day of this run is March 9th, but it is an encouraging run if you're looking for a blocking pattern to develop out of the destruction of the polar vortex. This run says that it happens. Do we believe it?
I don't know. But and again, let's stress this is the intermediate, the 18Z
Right,
GFS.
right.
So
Well, I will say I just rolled back to the 12Z, and here too on the 12Z, we've got a little vortex that forms there. It's not quite as strong. Um, it's more of an open trough by the time we get to the end of the period, but it has a similar idea. The 18Z is showing that being to be stronger. So we have to look to see if this is just a couple of a one or two run wonder, or is it going to be something that's going to be more meaningful? I will say, I know you've been quoting Dr. Judah Cohen. I've been following Dr. Amy Butler on Twitter, and she put up an interesting statistic. She said that polar vortex disruptions of this type wind up altering the pattern across the United States 70% of the time. Now, you can look at that statement and say, okay, if there's ever a year where we would be
get
in
to
the
30%.
30%,
Yeah.
right? This may be it. Okay. So while the odds are in your favor, I would just caution you that 70% is not 90%, and it's not 95%. You know what? And even if it was 95%, I'd still be worried about the 5%. So the ensembles late today were encouraging. We could even look at the Gefs ensemble, the Canadian one, just to see what that's doing. And let's roll that along. And you see the block. You see the vortex there over Newfoundland. You know, the Canadian ensemble's kind of on the same page. You know, this is from earlier today. This is the 12Z. And, you know, supposedly, and I can remember a few people telling me this, that when it comes to blocking, the Canadian model is probably better at it because of the fact that they've got, you know, the data sets that they use that are up in northern Canada and over into the Arctic regions are more extensive than the data sets that are used in the other models. I don't know how true that is, but the Canadian model says the GFS is on the right track. The European ensemble, which is the EPS news, is also uh, showing a similar idea with that blocking high kind of coming over the top, and you've got that again a vortex there, a little vortex there in eastern Canada, in over Newfoundland, and you know a general colder flow across the United States. So the ensembles today are saying that the long range that this polar vortex destruction that began on the 17th it will begin to bear fruit in the upper air pattern starting around March 1st or so, which is a week away, and whether that ultimately means something else, with regards to what we're going to be looking forward to in the month of March, that remains to be seen. So you can hang your hat on it.
Well, anything before, and again, I've said this for the last several years, to me, St. Patty's Day, March 17th, is the date. If you want heavy snow or significant snow after the 17th, you're really going to have to work at it. And this is one year where you don't want to, I mean, we haven't been able to do much of anything right straight on through. So, but at least if it comes before that make or break date, then there is perhaps some hope. You give me sharing capabilities, Joe. I want to show you an interesting graphic
Yes.
at Dr. Cohen. You mentioned him just a few moments ago, and now it's gotten to the point with Dr. Jude Cohen where he's gotten so, you know, so disappointed and so run down about the whole season that now he actually decided he would look back look back on this particular snowless, for some places, snowless winter, and came up with a very interesting diagram here. I'm going to bring up right now, and you could see it. And what this is, according to him, this is
There you go.
um, there you go. And this is a look at how the winter has gone so far for places not only here in North America but also in Europe and Siberia or whatever. Um, that if I could just bring up his tweet here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. He said, "Hot off the presses, still a work in progress, but this dismal snow season has inspired me to quantify just how bad. The plot on your screen now shows winter 2023 snowfall departure from normal for the Northern Hemisphere. I-95 corridor, notice that little stripe of orange, which indicates minus 20 to minus 40 on the legend there you see on the right.
Uh-huh.
I-95 corridor from D.C. to Boston, one of the big losers. Also the Alps. And you could see that there are little stripes of orange in the areas around the Alps. They have been below normal too. Big winter so far in this winter season. Quite obviously, we've been saying it over and over almost every day. The Sierras, they have been getting clobbered with lots and lots and lots of snow, and they are, to this date at least, the big winners so far in snowfall.
Yep.
Voila.
Look, there's no guarantee, even if this all plays out, the polar vortex getting destroyed, the upper air pattern changing. If that the block forms, if the and you've heard me say this many times, all of that's all fine and dandy, but if your troughs and ridges are not where they need to be, you can be sitting here twiddling in your thumbs uh, through all of this. I mean, and this is really, we're at the point now where it's your last chance to see anything with regards to snowfall in the I-95 corridor. So, um, everybody's going to be, we're going to be on pins and needles over the next 10 days or so to see how this all plays out in the guidance. And I will guarantee you, folks, that you will see the obligatory snowstorm on the GFS at 264 hours or whatever, or 276 or whatever it is. You may even see it put multiple storms on some of the runs. Until it gets inside the 7-day time frame, I don't want to know. It's hard to get. You're not going to get any value out of what the model shows specifically. What you need to just focus on is the changing of the upper air pattern and let that play out. And then once it plays out, then we can put our fingers on whether something is or is not going to happen. So speaking of is going to happen, we do know that we have weather coming up for tomorrow. There's your low. I can't even see what the lowest pressure is there in Utah. But you see the stripe of snow that goes from Michigan all the way back west into the Rockies. You see the snow that's over along the west coast. Rain in a narrow band in eastern Oklahoma with thunderstorms. So this is the severe weather risk for tomorrow in that zone up from Oklahoma to Missouri. The ice from Iowa into northern Indiana, northernmost Ohio. And then, of course, you've got the leading edge of precip that starts to develop in Pennsylvania. Who knows if you get a burst of snow or ice at the onset. And then for most of the coastal plain, obviously, it's rain. You see the snow that's up north of I-90 by early Thursday morning. Then of course, the big question on Thursday is how far does the warm front get, which is going to be our next battle. And then eventually all of this finally gets out of the way. And we do get a bit of cold air that comes in for Friday night and Saturday. I'm thinking Saturday, Joe, probably not get out of the 30s for a change.
But I've got a low. I've got a high for Saturday of 30 degrees.
Yeah.
But it jumps right back up to 40 or 41 by Sunday.
Yeah, Boston's probably not going to get out of the mid 20s on Saturday with this high. And that goes quickly out. You've got a system in the northern stream, a system in the southern stream. They both stay separate. Another front that kind of comes through here Sunday afternoon. There's not much with that. Monday, no big deal. Here comes your next low. Of course, if you look out in the west, you see this low that drops down from off the coast of Washington straight south through just offshore Southern California and drags snow all the way down on Saturday into Southern California. That low gets kicked out to the northeast, and we get a low that goes to the Great Lakes. And by Monday night, Tuesday, we've got rain, snow up way to the north in northern New England with a 978 low in Michigan. And we said the GFS was trying to make this look like it was going to go out off the New Jersey coast, which was totally yesterday, which was totally outside the north what we've been seeing throughout much of this winter. So why suddenly a low was going to go straight east with no block was beyond me. And of course, it corrected itself now. And the European was correct in the idea of taking a deep low to the lakes. Then that goes out. And now you start to see, here's March 1st, you start to see the effects of some of the blockiness because there's higher pressures building again in Canada. You see that 1029-ish high near Lake Winnipeg that just sits, sort of sits there. And they got some sort of weak system here on late next week. And of course, it's got snow in upstate New York and a little rain near the coast. Doesn't look like much. And then you've got something more important coming out of the Gulf states with a cold high in New England. So here's your obligatory GFS snowstorm at 253 2 hours, a snow and ice storm with a low in western Tennessee that goes into West Virginia and redevelops off the Virginia coast. Yeah, okay. And then that goes out. And then you've got, again, the blocky pattern look here starts to take over. So, a lot of this is in who knows land. But you know what? We're going to have to wait a week to see how this all shapes up. This is your last chance, folks. This is your last opportunity. Because if we don't change now, then it's really going to be just a lucky roll of the dice beyond the middle of March.
And right now, we're right on target with the winter of 97, 98 at Central Park. If I am correct here, at this moment in time in 97, 98, a grand total of 0.5 inches, a half an inch of snow had fallen at Central Park. Right now, we have 0.4. We have even less than that. And of course, the winter of 97, 98 saw 5 inches, a 5-inch snowstorm fall on Central Park on, of all days, the 22nd of March, 2 days after the official start of spring. So we're neck and neck with that particular. I mean, if you're wondering about how this stands up against the least amount of snow for any season at Central Park, we still have the winter of 72, 73. That winter had, I believe, 2.8 inches of snow for the entire winter season. But we actually had in one sitting in late January of that winter something like 1.8 inches of snow. We haven't even seen that so far this winter season. So if we do get any snowfall that's going to beat 72, 73, we have to get it sometime between now and, let's say, the middle part of March. Otherwise, I'm ready to throw in the towel. I know a lot of you out there have already thrown the towel in, but as Yogi Berra once said, it ain't over until it's over, and it ain't over yet. So we'll see what happens.
And on that note, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy.
Yes, and we will do that. I have the questions for tonight. And here is the average, continuing on the average high temperature in February for 5 different cities. We'll start with Beantown, Boston. What is, Joe and Chatboard, the average high temperature in February, in the month of February, for Boston?
For Boston, for the month of February,
Yes.
I'm going to say 36.
Okay.
And let's see. Craig Carlberg says 38. Christina Pedias is 35.
Dennis Cassia, you missed by one. We do have a winner.
And who's the
Patrick
winner?
Patrick Darcy,
At
39.
39.
It is a Jack Benny.
39. Lou Alessi is a runner-up at 38.
Michael Brown, 88.
And Chuck Cardillo at 38. Craig Carlberg at 38. And
Debbie Carroll at 39.
39. Okay, next.
The Windy City, Chicago, Illinois.
I'll say 34.
The fact that I'm not saying anything means you didn't have to reach into my pocket for the $100
bill.
Yeah.
Chris Alley says 36. Anthony Orr, 36.
And Keith James II coming up with the correct response, 37 degrees.
Yes, and we also have Frank Scalera, who hit Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Frank. Most appreciated, as always.
Yes. You hear that, honey? Frank Scalera. Don't come running downstairs now and hand me a piece of paper saying, you got to mention Frank Scalera's name. We're mentioning it right now. How about number 3 on the list? The Motor City, Motown, Detroit. Average temperature in February.
I'll say 35.
No, that's not the. No, that I shouldn't have done that. I should have did that because you hit it
35.
right out of the box. 35. Sammy
35.
Presley also has 35. There you go.
All right, next.
Well, let's throw you a little curveball here. How about your favorite town and mine, Joe? Honolulu.
Honolulu, Land of Goshen, 79.
79. No.
Oh, the
nice
average.
try. Nice try, though.
The average. I'm sorry, I went too high.
The average high temperature in February.
The average high temperature in February, or the average temperature?
No. The average high temperature.
The average high temperature. All right, but yeah. I'll stick with 79. But
okay.
And we've got Frank Riccio at 77, Charlie Porch at 71, William Uber at 81, Miss Fowler at 71.
Ding.
81?
William Uber hit it with 81 degrees.
Well, so did Debbie Carroll, got 81 also. Awesome Gaming went to 87. That's just a little too high. And yes. Dennis Cassia missing it by 1 at 82. Next.
Too bad, Dennis. Last one on the list tonight. All right, boss. It's Rochester.
Rochester, New York?
Rochester, Minnesota. No, Rochester, New York. No.
Well, it could have been Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Rochester, New York?
Yes.
I'll say 32.
Okay.
Patrick Darcy, 36. Christina Pedia, 31. Johnny Quest, 29. Chuck Cardillo, 33. Frank Scalera and Northern Grace both say 38. Eric Robinson, 35.
And we have a winner with Eric Robinson.
And Lou Alessi and Frank Riccio.
And Maggie
P. All hitting 35.
35.
There you go.
So just to run down the list here, Boston 39, Chicago 37, Detroit 35, Honolulu 81, and Rochester 35. Oh, wait a minute. Coming in with a late score here. Here we are. William and Mary 6, Nick and Tony 105. All right.
Bill and Mary. I actually know somebody that went to that graduated from Bill and Mary.
Caltech 14.5, MIT 3 to the 4th power.
Or Bill and Mare. All right. So, okay, just a couple of notes here. I told Joe, I told you before the show about one schedule change, but I just remembered there's going to be 2 schedule changes. So tomorrow night, because I got to be on the road for a while tomorrow. So the show will start tomorrow night either at 8:30 or 9 p.m. Okay, so make a note of that, folks. It's either going to be at 8:30 or at 9 p.m. And if Atlanta traffic is really bad, then even at 9 p.m. might be in jeopardy. But we're going to shoot for 8:30 and keep your fingers crossed that I'll make it back in time. But I'll post it when I know for sure the time for the show. So that's one change. The other one is that Sunday I won't be able to do the show Sunday morning, but I will be able to do a show Sunday evening. So I don't know if that works for you, Mr. Rayo.
What am I doing?
I
Am I
ask you,
going any?
you're going to be dragged by the hair to the German club meeting or something. So, I don't want to assume.
She's going to come and get you for that. I don't think there's a German club meeting, however,
Okay, so
this
then,
Sunday.
so Sunday we'll have a Sunday evening show instead of a Sunday morning show, either at 7 or 7:30. All right. Again, I'll have to let you know in terms of my schedule, and I'll explain when we're off camera. So you got that down, folks. Tomorrow night, 8:30, possibly 9 o'clock, and Sunday at either 7 or 7:30, and I will be posting the times. What's the matter?
Michael Brown, who is in Nova Scotia, by the way, posts on the chat board. Fraulein, we need beer. They're all coming up. They're all coming up now with the Christinepedia Guten Tag.
Oh, good Lord. All right, before we get you into any more trouble and then eventually get me into trouble, we will call it a night. And thanks everybody for being here tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Um, I got an email from one of the regulars yesterday who had a weather question, and it was really nice because she paid us compliments in terms of what we do show wise. I always like it when folks are, when I see a message or an email saying that, they get a lot out of the show. I mean, we fool around sometimes with stuff, and we go a little off the deep end every once in a while, but the show is about fun. It's about weather, and maybe you walk away from the show knowing a little bit more after it's over than when you started with. Sometimes I feel like that too. So, uh, thank you. Thanks very much for being here. 138 likes, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Nighty night.
Sometime tomorrow, either at 8:30 or 9 or whatever.
Joe and Joe Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Let me get out of the way at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They're getting ready for spring. 631-756-1125 for the best prices anywhere. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. Good night, Mr. Rayo.
Good night, sir, and good night to all.